Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. In this video, we're going to be talking about how the Ascension Map connects in with the catalog of tools that are created and provided by Truly Holistic. Okay? Because I've had a few questions, of late, of when I bring a new product through. Somebody will say, for example, it'll be a new tensor ring. And I'm trying to let them know that obviously that tensor ring is a physical anchor of frequencies. And it's dependent on the qubit measure of what it's going to facilitate. But generally people tend to think a tensor ring is just a tensor ring, right? And I'll get that answer that, yeah, I bought that a couple of years ago from you. Now, you've got to understand that one tensor ring to the other is different, depending on the qubit measure that it's being cut to and be fused together to create a closed loop, which then facilitates certain frequencies and becomes a physical anchor to bring those frequencies here. So the qubit measure, and I've really been encouraging people when they're dealing with energy tools to figure out, hey, what do I want to get? What's right for me? Your heart will tell you. And so the key to that is not necessarily what you're seeing and using a thought process. It's more about feeling yourself and feel into it. Feel into the energy. So, because all the photos that we put up in regards to the tools, you'll feel those energies through the photo. Okay, so you really want to feel into it, because I say in a lot of my posts, a lot of my videos, it's something we can trust as feel, because the heart is a facilitation of your expansion, which we're going to get to talk about in a minute in regards to the Ascension Map, which is a map of your expansion as an infinite consciousness. And you present an open heart by presenting a state of being which is our natural state, right? That's the cosmic joke, right? We're called human beings, but we're taught as humans, as part of humanity, to be thinkers, which is more doing than being, right? So we really want to feel into it. Also, why I want to associate this Ascension Map with the catalog of tools we have is to understand that, as I say, if you've got I bought a tool from me 2 years ago, we've shifted on from there, we've evolved. This is the thing about Ascension. Ascension's about personal growth and evolving and continually to ever evolve oneself, because we're infinite consciousness at our core, which means consciousness is an energy, and infinite means there's no boundary to it. So we must keep evolving. So the new energetics we're facilitating through all the time, and it will continue. So when you are someone very invested in bringing more of your expansion and allowing it to be represented here, which is really the meaning of Ascension, is you want to keep in touch with these new energetics that are coming through, because it's going to facilitate more of you, right? Which are going to make you feel more at ease, right? Which is essentially meaning to feel at peace with self, which then facilitates love, which facilitates more of your light. Just for life to have more meaning, have more purpose, to have more enjoyment, more happiness. All the things that we're really, really looking for, aren't we? And as I always say to people, right, it's your heart's desires. And for your heart's desires to materialize, you need your heart to lead that. Because if we're in mind thought, it's going to provide more of the things you don't want instead of the things you do want. So let's first bring up the Ascension Map. Now, I've done videos on Ascension Map before, but we've kind of got a more of a professional kind of viewpoint of it now. So I'm going to show you that there. And we've simplified it too. Because again, one thing I've learned from being more heart-centered instead of mind-orientated is that everything's a lot more simple than you think, and emphasize the word think, because thinking is what makes things more complex. And the way that we've been taught as the human to be thinkers, now, by seeing hundreds of thousands of clients over the years, and also my own journey and what I get guided, is this understanding that really humans generally overcomplicate stuff. We overcomplicate stuff. And the key to really gaining a greater insight, so a greater understanding and knowing of what something means and hence how to go about it, is always going to be simplifying. The heart only knows simplicity. The mind knows complexity. Okay, so what we've done with this is we've simplified it into 5 elements. Okay, and we're going to connect this with every energetic that Truly Holistic provides within the tools, and we're also going to go through the tool range to kind of give you a greater sense of how it ties in with your expansion. Okay, perhaps just to connect the dots a little bit more for everyone that has bought products from Truly Holistic or is interested in investing in it. So you can see that it's kind of the image of a tree, right? In the Nordic sense of things, they had the Yggdrasil tree. You know, there's the tree of life and so on. Now, this expansion is not above you or outside of you. This expansion is within you. Okay? So when I said earlier before, I said, you know, when we enable our expansion, us as infinite consciousness to be represented here, that means they need to levitate and ascend to the opening, which is the heart, to the surface. Because this all exists within you, right? There's a quantum pathway that goes through this heart, right? And the heart is a lot more than, you know, we've been taught that it is, right, in regards to the physical sense. So we must understand from a physical sense, right, our eyes see 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum of light. Now, what does that mean? It means it doesn't even we don't even get close to 1% of what can be seen. So what we can say, right, anything that we see with these eyes is generally a 0.0035% representation of what it is. That's what we're seeing. Right? So we're seeing less than one piece of a puzzle in a 100-piece puzzle to try and put together to see the bigger picture. So it's something we can't rely on what we see. That's why I really promote to feel into things, because feel is something that's not bound to limitation. Thought's bound to limitations. Our observation is bound to limitation. That's what generally humans are taught to follow. We need to feel away, because we provide an opportunity for our expansion as a souls of consciousness, as an infinite consciousness, to then guide us in regards to what we're experiencing, right? So we can be brought up to play with what the greater sense is going on, right? The bigger picture. So when we go into our heart, right? Now this here, right? I've got in green, which I've got earth, right? In green, so element earth. This is your reality. Okay? This is your universe, your dimension. You know, you can interchange those dimension, reality, universe. Okay? And you are expanding your world. Okay? Things don't happen to you this way. That's a perception deception. Everything's happening that way. Okay? You're a creator of realities. Okay? Beneficially creating of our reality. We don't want to create all these branch timelines that are kind of leading us to outcomes that are not for us, which would say is we're veering off track, so to speak. That's when mind and thought get in the way, where we start to create destructively, and that's going to be very chaotic and conflicted. Now, we want, you know, love creation, heart creation, right, which is a more balanced creation instead of from here an unbalanced creation. So this is where we are here, and we call it generation 3. Now, generation means reality, universe, dimension. Okay, so we all form our own generation 3 reality. We're not all in one generation 3 reality. We're all forging our own. So when I look at this is not a tree for all of us. We all have this tree. And kind of see it that we're all trees in perhaps a collective forest, right? Where we come down to this level of things, where we get to fire and ether. But we've been, again, very hoodwinked by the mind and thought to invest into our physicality, where, what's the greatest fear of humanity is when we lose that physicality, right? Death, right? And we're so invested in this collective we call humanity, when really we are not the human. Okay, that again, that is part of the hoodwinking, part of the game of duality. But let's get back into this. So you can see, right, there's generation 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we've got the roots of the tree, which we would call your source self. Okay, so that's the element water. We're the element earth here, and then the rest of our multi-dimensional aspect of us, because remember, these are different realities, universes, dimensions that share the same energy signature. Now, energy signature means your soul. Okay, it originates here in the roots, right, and it gets spliced into these different realities, universes, dimensions. Okay, and you'll see here we've got a vortex here, because try and picture this, right, but that way, and it's spinning, right, a bit like a spiral galaxy, right? And this is another thing that we see with our reality, is that everything outside of us is a fractal of what originates within us, the expansion within. Okay, everything's fractals, and once you become more self-aware of that, you'll notice the certain patterns all around reality and around existence, right? Which is going to give you greater insights into what reality is based on, what it's built upon, and all these other things that, this is why we do reality coaching as well at Truly Holistic, to provide you to understand your reality and also your purpose within it. So these are all other realities that have got variants, versions of you that exists within them, because you're all sharing the same energy signature, okay? So we've got earth, we've got air, we've got water, right, which is the roots, right? It's the source of your energy. Then we'll see the first part of the soil is fire, and then even deeper, we've got ether. Now, ether is a relatively new one, a new energetic that we'll get into in a minute. And these two aspects here, just like a tree or a plant, right? Where do they get their sustenance from, right? They're getting fed. Their roots are getting fed. The roots need to be in the ground for all of this to expand, right? That's what the tree's wanting to do, right? It's wanting to expand, right? More branches, more foliage, right? And this center is at everything we do at Truly Holistic, because what's our expertise at Truly Holistic? We don't work on the superficial things. We work on the roots and the origin of all issues. Now, and that's the understanding then, we need to work at that level to remove the roots of the it problem out, right? Because if we just work at a superficial level, we're again just trimming the foliage, the branches, for it just to grow again and remanifest again, right? There's no point in doing that. So this is a centerpiece, not only with the tools that we're going to talk about in this video, but about the sessions, whether it's reality coaching, ascendance healing sessions, as well as the self-empowered systems we've got in place, like the Intuitively Aligned, where we teach you how to correct your own neck and back issues and your biomechanics, your posture, as well as a broadcasting system where we really teach you to provide sustenance through your superpowers of attention and intention, coupled with the sun ring or a broadcasting tool, as well as the color therapy system, or color therapy kit, which is a new one on the block, so to speak. Now, so just like the soil with trees and plants up there, it's what fire and ether are doing is feeding your consciousness. Not necessarily you as a consciousness, because you as a consciousness is the tree. That is feeding your consciousness. So this kind of even, in a sense, goes beyond frequency. Because, as I say, what does infinite consciousness mean? You as an infinite consciousness. An energy that has no boundary or limits applied to it, right? So why do we, as the human, feel like we've got limitation on us all the time, right? It's a fair, valid question there. And so that means, frequency. That's what energy is. It's frequencies, right? So every, here we've got a spectrum of frequencies. and here another spectrum. So if you can connect into all this expansive aspect of yourself, you're facilitating multitudes of spectrums of frequencies. Okay? Now, I put a post today about, a question, is it, what's the most important thing? What you place in the body or the state and environment you provide the body, right? And some great discussion there. And that's what I wanted people to be involved. Now, if we're just focusing on still the nutritional sense of things, right? And I was there at one point, we're putting in there, and we talk about, like it's got magnesium in it or calcium and those sorts of things. You got to understand what differs from magnesium and calcium is that along that spectrum of frequencies, magnesium kind of facilitates a bunch of frequencies and calcium facilitates another bunch of frequencies that either one don't possess, right? They individually possess themselves, which means that's why they have different functions, right? So, and that's just a few frequencies on one spectrum. When you get your heart open, right, and facilitate more of your expansion, you're not just bringing through a few frequencies, you're bringing through that full spectrum to begin with, but multitudes of spectrums. Right? Just dwarfs that old paradigm of the way we're going to look at it and the way that we sustain ourselves. This is just a completely different level. It's even with the other people that are, a majority of people that put tensor products out there, right? And what I mean by that, like a tensor ring, right, are using qubit measures like the Royal Sacred Qubit, the Lost Qubit, the old qubits that Slim Sperling brought through probably like a good 30 years ago now, 25, 30 years ago. And those are just bringing through a few frequencies. They're not bringing through spectrums of frequencies. For example, this ring here, the activation, is bringing through everything that exists within this reality. It's bringing through a spectrum, full spectrum of frequencies. Just, again, another level, okay? So let's get into the energetics that we do provide in regards to the tools and how they connect with the map here. Right, so as I say, this first tool, right, which is the activation qubit, right? And sometimes we call it the heart activation. Why? Because how do we connect to all this expansion? Through the heart. So we need the heart to be open to get access to this. Okay. Now, when we are following what we are taught as the human, as a thinker, which we call the mind-thought pathway, the mind opens up, but sadly the heart closes off. And the most common clearing we have to do in sessions is to open people's heart. And why it's the most common? Because generally everyone's following what they were taught and conditioned to be as the human and don't understand about that this is you. The human is not you. Okay. You got to understand that this body, right, which is also part of the 0.0035% of what we can only see as physicality, is much more than what you think it is. Right? This is an interface, which is another word for body. Another word for computer. It's an interface. It's a medium conduit to enable intelligence to extend its will through it. It's a vehicle for what is real. And what is real is you as a consciousness. That's just another word for intelligence. That's what you really are. And you're just accessing this vessel. Okay. So the first one, the activation, is all about getting your self-awareness, dropping it into the heart, which is connected to the expression, right? To fall in love, right? This is what we say when we're in love with somebody, or we can't stop really getting involved in something, right? It might be a hobby or something you just really love. That's why it's called fall in love, because to fall in love, where's love facilitated from? Heart. And if we're up here, we need to fall down to the heart to fall in love. That's the true meaning of that expression, right? Pretty cool, right? So this qubit is about trying to get you to the door, okay? Which we call the activation qubit the element Earth. Earth, green. Okay, right? So as I say, that has the potential, the capacity to bring through a full spectrum of this reality universe dimension. Okay. Now the next one is the gateway, and the gateway is the element air, right? This big component here that's white. Okay, so bring in your multi-dimensional aspect of yourself, which is, I'm going to tell you right now, is your true oneness, not humanity. This is your true oneness. Okay. I'm just looking for a tool specifically that brings that through. Usually that measurement of the gateway, we don't necessarily make products that just brings that one in. It's amongst many of them where we bring through activation gateway, and the next one we're going to talk about Ascension, and I'll explain why we do that in a minute. But all you need to know is that the gateway qubit, and you'll see them with all the products in the description on my website, on my product site, I'll store, it is the element air. Now the next qubit measurement is Ascension. Now that is the element water. Okay. Now as I said just before, a lot of products